This conference will now be recorded.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For emergency issues only, is there any school committee members' additions to the agenda? I'm going to ask that we add an email Brian got today that's time sensitive from the Department of Justice. Is that okay with you? Okay. Public comment. This is the first time we really had public in this. And if you want to speak, we'd love to hear it. No problem. Hey, you guys walking in now want to speak? All right. All right, our consent items. Is there any item that anyone would like to remove from the agenda? And I'm looking for a motion on the consent items. Motion to approve the consent items. Okay, second by Amy. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously, 4-0. New business. We have our. Are we going in order? We want to do our justice first.
That's up to you. Ben wants to go and people want to.
All right. Ben, we would love to hear from you.
All right. I want to hear what this department does.
It's about you.
Now I figured. Okay. 2024 MCAS and accountability presentation. First off, we're a little later than usual. That's I had a scheduling conflict, so thank you for your patience. Normally we do this in November. I'm going to do my best to remember all the clever things I meant to say when I made this presentation a month ago. But well, we'll see. So we're going to cover three things: measures of proficiency, measures of growth, measures of accountability. And for those of you who can't see the presentation, if you feel like shifting around, it's going to be much less interesting if you can't see all the. I made a bunch of color-coded charts. They're really cool. So you can't see.
Spend a lot of time on that.
I know.
You want to move your chair.
Okay. Click.
There's a bit of a delay.
Okay.
I will do my best to anticipate you 5 seconds ahead of time.
Yes, I should give you a secret sign about to wrap up. And not gonna lie, I kind of recycled this from last year. It is just to show all the different variations of the MCAS, the legacy MCAS, the next generation MCAS that we've gone through over the years. The good news is that for several years now, we have been on the next generation MCAS, both in grades 3 through 8 and in grade 10 for science and math and ELA. So the DESE's sort of doing a reboot in 2022. That's their new baseline year because we're all on the same test. And going forward, it should be a little easier to extract meaning from some of these test results. So measures of proficiency reflect students' command of ELA, math, and science on testing day. The following charts are going to, they'll all show you the same thing. They're going to show you the percentage of students meeting or exceeding expectations for their grade levels. And these measures of proficiency answer the question, are Belchertown students more or less likely to meet grade level expectations than their peers statewide? We're going to get into growth measures later, which are more a reflection on our success as educators. But these show whether our students are meeting or exceeding expectations. So this is statewide. This isn't Belchertown. This is Massachusetts as a whole. And I threw it in because something very interesting is going on in the state. Since last year, the percentage of students meeting or exceeding expectations fell at every grade level. Proficiency level rates are still lower than in 2019, but the real surprise is that proficiency declined in the last year in every grade level. It's a change from the small gains that we saw between 2023 and 2024. 2022 and 2023. And I think there was an expectation on the part of the state and one that I shared that coming out of the pandemic, things would just get better and better and better till we were somewhere near where we were before. And this has been a big surprise. And I don't think there are any perfect explanations of what's going on yet, but I know it's something that the DESE is very concerned about. They did not expect to see our progress halt and scores to decline across the state. The DESE called particular attention to declines among our younger students, who may have missed sort of learning critical concepts during the pandemic. I think the grade 3 students would have been in kindergarten during the height of the pandemic when the school closures were most pronounced. And as you might imagine, missing out on some of those reading concepts in kindergarten could be a big deal. I don't know that that's the whole story, but the key thing here is just ELA scores are down in every grade level, more so a little bit on the younger students, grades 3, 4, 5. So next we have Belchertown proficiency rates. Same thing, the percentage of students meeting or exceeding expectations in every grade level. Since last year, Belchertown students' ELA proficiency rose in grades 6 and 8, but it fell in grades 3, 4, 5, and 7, and 10. And just like at the state level, the declines are greater among the younger students, much less pronounced when you get to the older students, and a couple of bright spots where scores actually went up, which is good to see. The slide after that, it's essentially the same information. It's color-coded to show how we compare with state proficiency rates, whether our students are more proficient or less proficient, because whether we went up or down doesn't tell the whole story. It's useful to see where our students are outperforming Massachusetts students in general and where we are underperforming. So green indicates that our students are more likely to meet or exceed expectations at that grade level. Red indicates that they're less likely to meet or exceed expectations. And the thing, the good news is, if you look at 2019, pre-pandemic, there was no grade in 3 through 8. Aside from grade 10, there was no grade in which our students were more likely to meet or exceed expectations. Now we have a couple of grades where that's the case. The year before we had 3 grades where our students exceeded the state average, but we've still got 2. It's an improvement over 2019. In some cases, that's being driven by actual increases in learning here in Belchertown, and that's great. In some cases, to be honest, it's the state has fallen more than we have. So there's a little bit of both in there. The results are not quite as positive as last year. 2 grade levels, 3 and 7, have gone from showing higher proficiency than the state to showing lower proficiency than the state. If we go to the next slide. The other interesting thing to look at is the magnitude of that difference between us and the state. Because in some cases, for 1 point off, like in grade 3, that means we're roughly in line with state proficiency levels. Looking at grade 4, 9 points below the state is a different matter entirely. And then in some cases, grade 6, 20 percentage points above the state is excellent. So this is showing the size of the gap between the state's proficiency rate and Belchertown's proficiency rate measured in percentage points. And for example, in 2024, 42% of 3rd graders statewide and 41% of our 3rd graders met or exceeded expectations. So we're one percentage point below. That's what this is showing, to give a sense of where the differences between us and the average Massachusetts student are greatest. It's very mixed results. The positives are these, I think. In 2019, we were well below the state in every grade level but 10. Now our students exceed the state scores in grades 6, 8, and 10. In those grades where Belchertown typically sees high growth, which are 6, 8, and 10, we've seen that for several years now, our students really outperform the state, which is awesome. 20 percentage points above in 6, 13 in 8, and 13 in grade 10. There are also in here, buried in this, are some really amazing turnaround stories. And we spoke about it a couple of years ago, but grade 6 is one of them. So grade 6 was 10 percentage points below the state in 2019. They're 20 points ahead of the state in 2024, which is really astounding. And you can see where that difference happened, and that was the year that those teachers worked together and really shook up how they do things and made some amazing gains that they've managed to hold on to since then. In most grades where our students still show lower proficiency than the state, we've closed a lot of the gaps since 2019. Again, these are the positives. I'll get to some of the negatives. 12 points below in grade 3 back in 2019, 1 point below in 2024. That's good. We're coming closer to meeting the state average for those grade levels. Again, sometimes it's because our scores came up. Sometimes it's because the state scores declined since the pandemic. So on the negative side, we still lag the state in 4 grade levels, 3, 4, 5, and 7, with the gap in grade 4 being particularly large. And grade 4 proficiency has dropped each year for a number of years, 10 percentage points above the state, 1 percentage point above, 5 below, 9 below. So that's the kind of thing that I think at the school level you're looking at. Thinking about what we can do to turn that around. If we go back one, sorry. One other note about this is there are cases where it can be very informative to read this on the diagonal to look at specific cohorts. And a good case is 8th grade. So, even in a year where 8th grade didn't exceed the state, if you look at the year before that, those students were 13 percentage points below the state, and the 8th grade, which is traditionally a very high performing grade with very effective instruction, brought them up to 3 points below. That's a big gain. Here, the students coming in were 18 percentage points below the state average, and they came up to 1 percentage point above. Buried in here, reading on the diagonal, you can see cases where it looks as though instruction has been very effective, even if the outcome isn't dramatic. 1 percentage point above the state isn't something we'd normally say, wow, that's amazing. But to get from 18 percentage points below to 1 percentage point above is a real achievement. We're going to see, you can get there by reading on the diagonal on these charts, but the DESE's measures of growth analyze that and communicate it much better than this, where we're going to look at those after proficiency. But I did just want to point out that you can begin to see in this that we've got some real success stories. Grade 5, students came in 13 points below, and the next year after going through the grade 6 program, they were 13 points above the state. So the growth numbers distill that in a very effective way, and they do some math, which makes it even more accurate. We're going to see those in a minute, but I did want to point out that even where you have a number that doesn't look very dramatic, that can signify a very dramatic gain for those students. So, go on.
Hey, Beth.
Yes.
Just ask a quick question. So what is the row that is indicated by 3 through 8?
Yes. That is the grade 10. The grade 10 exam is its own thing. It's scored differently for various reasons connected to it being a graduation requirement. That combines all of the scores for grade 3 through 10. So it can be a very useful row to look at if you just want an overall sense of how we're doing in grades 3 through 10, 3 through 8. And again, the good news here is if you take grades 3 through 8, we are above the state in terms of the percentage of our students who are meeting or exceeding expectations. But the downside is that's entirely based on grades 6 and 8. So it's great that we have these islands of really exceptional instruction and very effective programs. That was enough to raise the overall 3 through 8 score to where it is several percentage points above the state. So yes, it's the whole chart is interesting, but the last 2 rows, one that gives our grade 10 results and one that gives everything but grade 10, can be very informative. And yeah, I love the fact that pre-pandemic, in grades 3 through 8, we were 11 percentage points below the state. And I think it really speaks well of the district that those teachers have gotten us to where we are 4 points above. It's not all these 2 grade levels because there have been some real improvements at other levels. I think, when I went and applied the colors to these charts, it really made me think, looking at 2019, which was not a strong year for us, that I think we can get in this, set in this mindset like, oh, pre-pandemic, everything was great then. Everybody could read, everybody could do math. It was so wonderful. We could just get back there. But getting back to 2019 should not be the goal for this district, and it's not. That was not necessarily something we want to return to. I'm much happier seeing 2024 where we compare more favorably with the state than 2019, where we were pretty consistently behind. So same charts, but math. Since last year, this is Massachusetts as a whole, not Belchertown. Since last year, Massachusetts math scores rose in some grades, but fell in others. So it's kind of mixed results. Statewide math proficiency rose in grades 3 and 4, and it fell in 5, 6, 7, and 10, and it was flat in grade 8. Overall, flat though. If you look at 3 through 8, in those grade levels, it stayed exactly the same. Again, not as negative an outcome as in ELA, where it fell across the board. However, it isn't really what I think everyone expected to see. We thought a little better every year till we're in a good place again. So, Belchertown. In Belchertown, math proficiency rose in grades 3, 6, and 8, but it fell in grades 4, 5, 7, and 10. And in this case, some of these changes were pretty pronounced. The proficiency in Belchertown remains at or below the 2019 level in every grade except grade 8, where we saw some very large gains last year. So very much a mixed bag. Grade 6, again, not only in ELA, but in math, students have been performing very well. They gained 9 percentage points. Grade 8, amazing, 16 points gained, but we have places where we've lost 9 percentage points against the state when compared to the state. Well, we've lost 9 percentage points in terms of the absolute number of percentage of students who are meeting or exceeding expectations. 15 points down, 12 points down. So, it's very much a mixed picture in math, and it was for the state as well. But the size of the fluctuations is greater here than it is for the state, which you would expect. Averaging things over the whole state, you're not going to get major fluctuations like that. Same color coding. Red means our students are less likely than the state average to meet or exceed expectations. Green means they are more likely, and no color means that we are exactly the same as the state. Even though we here we just matched the state, it took a 16-point increase since 2023 to get us to average. But that 16 points is really a big improvement in math for that grade level. And we've been talking about these with schools. I think schools are looking at cases too where things have where scores have fallen. 48% meeting and exceeding going down to 33 is certainly something that school administrators are interested in. If we look at the magnitude of the changes, same as with ELA, it's the size of the gap between our performance and the state's performance. For example, in 2024, 44% of third graders statewide and 27% of our third graders met or exceeded expectations. So we're 17 percentage points below the state. There's a pretty sizable difference between our proficiency rate and the state proficiency rate, and that's particularly true among the younger students in math. This year marks a big change. We've shifted away from the My Math series to a new set of math instructional materials called iReady. And I think I'll be very curious to see the spring MCAS results when they come out next summer or next fall. That may help us gauge whether the iReady series better prepares students for this assessment. We did dig into the MCAS scores in math, as we always do, to try and see, well, which kinds of questions did our students really struggle with. And we did see some patterns. We don't always, but we did see for a few years, they really struggled in the younger grades with fractions in particular. My hope is that the new instructional materials will hit those topics harder, introduce them younger, maybe, and we'll see some change there. But again, and if you look at the 3 through 8, 6 points below the state on the whole in grades 3 through 8, but not evenly distributed. Certainly, the younger students are in particular lagging the state. Science, we have a lot less data. This is statewide. Massachusetts as a whole, scores came up in grades 5 and 10, but they declined in grade 8 by a little bit. On the whole, they came up, by 1 point, and the state was pleased about that. We go on to Belchertown science proficiency. Student proficiency rate increased in grades 5 and 8, but it dropped a little bit in grade 10. On the whole, very nice, 6 points of increase in grades 3 through 8 is excellent, and that was mostly driven by improvement in grade 8. From 2023, where we had 37% of our students meeting or exceeding expectations, to 2024, where we had 47%, which is exactly what we like to see on these. Same thing, but color-coded. There we go. So at all 3 grade levels, our students are more likely to meet or exceed expectations than students statewide. And I think, yeah, if we go on to the next one, we'll have you can see just how much we're beating the state averages by. Right, so grade 5, 3 percentage points more likely to be meeting or exceeding expectations. Grade 8, 8 percentage points. 3 through 8 overall, 6. And then in grade 10, the biology program has been going strong for many years. Our students are 17% more likely to be meeting or exceeding expectations in that 10th grade biology test. 5 and 3 are general science. Grade 10 is specifically for biology, and our scores have always been well above the state in grade 10 science. So onward to measures of growth. So if the preceding slides tell us what our students know and how proficient they are at using the English language, solving math problems and things, measures of growth really reflect more on our success as educators. They show how much English and math students learned since the previous year's test. Each student's progress is compared with similar students statewide, and by similar I mean students who have an identical set of test scores for several years. So every student is put into a group with other students who have a similar testing history, who've received the same scores for several years, and they're sort of matched against those students. Average student growth percentiles between 40 and 60 are considered to show typical growth. That's the DESI's language. Student growth percentiles below 40 represent low growth, and student growth percentiles above 60 show high growth. High growth indicating that that learning is proceeding at a significantly faster rate in that grade level than the rest of the state. So these slides answer the question, how much impact are we having on student learning? And these are really, student growth percentiles are really the best measure of our success over the preceding year. The math behind them is pretty clever, and it gives us our best indicator of where we are being successful and where we need to make some improvement. So ELA, green indicates that our growth percentiles were above the state average. It's a percentile, so the state average is 50. Red indicates that our student growth percentiles were below 50. And we have no growth scores for grade 3. That's the baseline year. We have nothing to compare with. So for growth, we have no insights into grade 3. ELA growth scores were generally very good, with grades 6 and 10 falling into the high growth zone, and only grade 4 showing low growth. So again, anything below 40 is considered low growth. This isn't too surprising based on the proficiency scores we saw earlier in the presentation, that in grade 4, that was deemed a low growth experience for them. Anything between 40 and 60 is considered sort of typical growth, and anything above 60 is high growth. So grade 6, grade 10, we're seeing, as we have for a while now, some very impressive academic growth in ELA. In fact, looking at grade 6, growth scores indicate that our grade 6 ELA program is among the most effective in the state. This scale technically goes to 100. Nobody gets anywhere near 100. That 72, it can be easy to forget that that's really a very high score for the whole grade. So the average student growth percentile for the entire grade is 72. That means Belchertown tied for 5th place out of 307 districts. But, in tiny districts, it's easier to get very high or very low growth. It's not really comparable when you only have one teacher who's in charge of all 6th grade ELA instruction. If you take out all those districts that had fewer than 100 6th grade students, our 6th grade tied for 2nd out of 198 districts. It's really a success story that I love revisiting every year. We've got some good results elsewhere, but that is wonderful to see. And it dates to when they made those changes. A student growth percentile of 52 back in 2019, that's almost exactly average. 50 is average. They really have accomplished something wonderful in grade 6. We go on, they are also doing very well in math. 66 is again, high growth. In math in general, grades 4 and 8 showed low growth, while grade 6 demonstrated high growth. Everybody else was in the typical range between 40 and 60. But it's great to see, now it's both in ELA and math that 6th grade is really achieving high growth. And we also have measures of accountability. These measure our success in meeting benchmarks chosen for Belchertown by the DESE. They set goals for us, and then they rate us on how well we met those goals. The accountability measures take into account a lot of factors. Achievement, which we looked at, or proficiency, growth scores, chronic absenteeism, progress towards English proficiency for English language learners, assessment participation, what percentage of our students actually took the MCAS, and then for high schools, they also add advanced coursework and graduation rates. So these slides answer the question, are we progressing toward meeting the goals set for us by the DESE? And there's a lot of information. It's a fairly complex system that they apply. There's a link, there's more information if you're curious. And these accountability measures are ultimately used to determine which districts and schools require assistance from the DESE, by which they mean intervention. And at worst case scenario, they come in and take over. Clearly, our schools were not found to require any assistance or intervention on the part of the DESE. We're well above the zone where such intervention would be likely. If we go on to the next one, we can see the actual scores. So accountability measures rose at Chestnut Hill and Jabesh Brook, and they fell a bit at the high school, though the high school still got the highest accountability scores of any of our schools. The DESE declared all 3 schools based on these numbers and the district as a whole to be making substantial progress toward improvement targets. They break it down by all those different things I mentioned: proficiency, growth, chronic absenteeism. And I just wanted to highlight that this year we got a lot of points for improving chronic absenteeism. Almost all the points that you can get because our chronic absenteeism rate fell. It fell at all schools. It fell in all demographics. Each demographic group showed better attendance, less chronic absenteeism, and that helped our accountability score. So in summary, Statewide, 2024 was a surprising year. Declines in proficiency challenged the notion that Massachusetts is on some sort of idealized straight line path to pre-pandemic excellence. In Belchertown, the results were mixed, with some areas of strength and improvement and other areas of weakness. Growth rose slightly in general, but proficiency declined. And that's a pattern that suggests that our teaching effectiveness is improving compared with the state, but that a significant number of our students still remain unprepared to complete grade level work. That's what I have, and happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any questions for Ben? Question, not strategy. So what's going on in sixth grade? What are you doing? What's yeah.
So sixth grade, a couple of years ago, it's been jumped in, you went from that. They kind of revamped as a team what the expectations were. They used rubrics based on more past writing. They helped us a lot on writing and response. They increased expectations, and we've seen the results. We've moved some educators that were in one subject. We moved them to math, ELA, they have the same names there. So I know Ms. Champagne is working on the writing method that they used in sixth grade, down to fifth grade last year. She's focusing on that. So it was just real commitment from those educators. And we go back to it all the time. And correct me if I'm wrong, no matter what the resource was, no matter what subject they were, educators were getting the same results.
Yeah, it was across the board. It's persisted for several years now. So, fingers crossed that's a permanent change. We reached out to, I wrote to them and asked them when these results came out. They were so dramatic, and such a dramatic change from the year before. And it was fascinating to read their comments on what they think made the difference. It was sort of a masterclass in effective teaching. They talked a lot about the things that Brian mentioned. They collaborated very closely. They held their students to very high standards, not in a unkind way, but I think they believed their students could achieve more. They presented them with opportunities to challenge themselves, and the students rose to the occasion. They focused on writing a lot, and that was something that we had identified as a weakness in the past. If you dig into the actual scores, some of the writing scores in sixth grade were amazing compared to the state. Typically, the scores in writing statewide are lower than the scores in reading and fundamentals of English language. But certainly in the sixth grade, that focus on writing paid off. Trying to think what else they said. They talked a lot about collaboration. They were actually scoring writing samples from students in the other classrooms to keep themselves honest, to make sure they were all calibrated in the same way. It was very interesting to hear just what they did to make that happen.
So we're trying to help. But just to follow up, Ben, myself, and Sean mentioned individual principals. We went over the results. We looked at areas of need, what were our strengths, writing. We lost some points on writing.
Some grade levels, yeah.
Talking about revamping and reassessing our writing district-wide.
Math, we've got a new math series. I'm hopeful that will, I don't think in the end our students were always well served by the My Math series. And so I'm really happy that we're moving on to iReady, which I don't know a lot about, but it's a change, and hopefully a change for the better.
I think we have a change in leadership at Swift River. We're looking at that impact and how that will impact. The million-dollar question is, as we all know, MCAS is no longer a requirement for graduation. What's that going to be like moving forward? Is it going to change anything? We're still moving forward. We're still using this as one tool of assessment. With the iReady Math, we have assessments built into that. In my view, we have assessments built into that. So we're really dissecting that and using that to drive instruction in the classroom.
Which I think is great. I mean, it's all well and good for me to get up here 6 months after last year ended and say, oh, you know what, they didn't know fractions. These built-in assessments, I'm hoping will give us an early warning so that we can change that. And we can say, oh, you know what, these kids are struggling with fractions. Let's fix that now instead of finding out the following year that, writing was a weak spot or fractions were. So I think those built-in assessments, in my view, I mean, they make a big difference.
Can I ask Sean? I feel like it might come down to curriculum, but how do you use this information in making curriculum decisions?
This,
Or do
we do in two ways. One, we identify areas that we may have curriculum gaps. So like, as we were looking at math, Ben came in and we went through and really was except for fractions in the lower grades this year, there really is no consistent area where for that. So if say fractions was an area where we struggled, we would use that as an identifier of when we look at materials, who has the strongest approach to each fraction. And the other way we use it is demographically, kind of if there are certain populations of students who are struggling in particular areas. And then we look again, we take that lens for our students with special needs struggling. And how do these materials address that certain population supports that they have? We don't necessarily full scale. And then we'll look at, so this year, starting in the winter, probably right after the new year, we implemented a new ELA series right after the pandemic. And so we're doing a company coming to the audit of our implementation so far and say recommendations for here's something more critical time, here's functional strategies to help. Otherwise, we can just buy something, put it in, what's the next thing, or so we're circling back to say, we're not all green yet. Still the red spots, like how do we wipe off those red spots?
Well, thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ben.
All right, is the committee okay if we talk about the DOJ? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, we added that into the meeting.
So, as you recall, last year, 2 years ago, we had some incidents of racism at Jamersbrook. We did some work with the Justice Department in their community relations service. They came in, they did a training. It was particularly at Javish, I don't know if any of you guys are there, Javish, and the high school called the Spirit Program. Javish was kind of a reaction to what was going on during that time, and in high school we were proactive in carrying out there. So I got an email from the director, the lead specialist on from the DOJ, and they come from different areas of the country, Washington, New York. We also had community members that helped us facilitate it. So they were very pleased with the outcome, that they want to use our experience here, and he wants to bring it to Congress. And it's the interim report, and we have to sign a authorization disclosing information. It will just be those couple of schools. There won't be any like students' names or anything like that. But he needs it rather soon. If we want to take part in this, I think it would be great. I think we learned a lot from the report. I think students were very honest. I think the facilitators were honest. We still got work to do. We still have the report. Like I said, we did it up at the high school. They also identified some concerns that students had, and this is all student-led. The student comes up with the solutions. So I need your permission and authorization to move forward to do the permission. And I'm asking that you do that.
We vote on this.
You have to vote, yeah.
Okay. So let's start with, is there a motion?
Motion to participation at DOJ presentation.
Any questions, comments? I just want to say that I'm really proud. I'm proud of how we handled it as a district. And I'm proud that we can recognize people very correctly. There was a lot of rough feelings going into this, and I feel like we're not done, but we've come on. Anything else? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, passes unanimously. Sure. Fiscal year 25, supporting students, SEL grant.
Okay, so as we tried to do this year, this is another grant that is awarded or is in the process of being awarded if you choose to accept. For the district, this will cover work for educators, continuing to work with multiple supports and professional development in building our next steps. Talked before about the SABRES assessment and working on as we identify students or as we identify any issues or issues across the district, behavior, learning how do we respond in an appropriate way, how to track our recognition, all the things that Ben, like I'm not gonna have charts like Ben did, but applying that model to social learning as well. So we need to accept $25,080 from the state.
Is there a motion? It's kind of a no-brainer.
Second.
Second by Mika. Any questions? This is great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimous. All right, Mika, the MASC delegate assembly.
So, we had 10 resolutions. Some of these you may be familiar with. They all passed, by the way. So development of an alternative and passed, I was moving to, some of the language I related to something that was moved at that point, which was, kind of because of the recent election. And so that passed, an increase in the compulsory attendance age to 18. There's a resolution for that, we'd like to take to the legislature. That passed. A safe storage of firearms is more like a kind of like a way to use the schools to communicate with families about the safe storage of firearms. That resolution passed. The School Bus Stop Arms Surveillance Act enforcement penalties, and it's basically putting some kind of camera on the school bus stop arm, and that resolution passed. Aligning the tax authority with the required local contribution. So that's an effort to kind of get over the hump, Proposition 2.5, to be able to raise taxes when needed, especially considering that we know that we're not getting kind of federal and state funding in districts that look like ours. And that resolution passed. The support of legislation to improve the fiscal health of rural school districts. That passed. Adjusting Chapter 78 for inflation. That resolution passed. Like I said, all of them passed. If you have any questions, and I'm just reading out the resolutions. Equitable funding for non-regional school districts with high transportation costs. Of course, Belchertown can relate to that. That passed. MSBA grants evaluation for Chapter 74. That resolution passed, an expansion in capacity in Chapter 74 vocational technical programs. So that resolution passed. It was a very healthy debate. But I
Thank you
think
so much
it
for
was-
representing us there. I don't think anybody has for a couple of years.
It was a fun meeting.
Any questions?
That's the one on Saturday.
Yeah, that's the one on Saturday.
Okay. Any questions or anything else? Well, thank you again. Was there anything that people were like debating between, like, that were like a close vote or?
There were some, like the resolution to safe storage of firearms. Some people were like, well, it's just a communication to families. It's not like there's.
Well, when you first sent it, I was like, wait, you want to keep firearms in the school,
Yeah, it's just communication to families about how to store firearms safely at home. That's
Only in the superintendent.
There were a few that were challenging. The assistance to rural school districts, that was debated and it passed. Most people felt that it was a reasonable solution, most of the delegates.
All right, Angela.
So myself, Sean, Eric, and the gentleman from the auctioneer, for Castle. And there is some material there that could possibly be sold during an auction, but the majority of it is trash, he said. We would get a whole 50 cents for any old chairs or desks. Some of the expensive items were like anything that was metal, any tools or snow plows or anything like that. Nope, not file cabinets. We would have to move them all to one room. We would have to organize how people are going to go in and out to the building. He doesn't know that it's worth the money to do this. So he's going to send us a quote. I haven't, Heather, did you get anything? I haven't received anything yet, but just an update. I don't know that it's going to be worth us doing it that way. I'll follow up with Eric. Maybe we just do surplus and get rid of it. Maybe we look at a metal company coming up and recycle that way. But as we talked about when we got it there, so there's a lot of stuff there that we have to go through. Anything else?
Cost us more than we're gonna get. And plus you gotta get people there to buy.
Can you
Like
give
a lot of
something
money.
for free?
I don't know. That didn't really come up. I don't know that I honestly would want to give anything away. Only because it's not in the best condition. And I don't know, I'm just saying like, I don't know. And if it's, I can find out.
Just right, I'm just thinking instead of, if there's anything that we could keep up,
Or recycle.
or recycle.
Yeah.
Rather than just throw it.
And if any of you would like it to work, what I have to give you.
I kind of do.
All right, 25, 26 school counts.
So in your packet, there's a draft of the 25, 26 calendar. I know you're all excited about school next year. Hold back your enthusiasm. So I still want to give this to the DEA to take a look at, but there is a small window between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it has to be out January 1st. For the contract, so I wanted everybody here to take a peek and see if they. So, honestly, I'm gonna bring it back for official approval, but I just wanted to give you the heads up, it will be in January. I'll let the DEA know. Anybody want to complain about the first day of school?
My daughter.
Come on, now's your chance, you got
On the second day of school at David, I got stung by an bee twice in vain.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
So tell them we can't start until like September 10th.
December, with the bees.
Yeah.
This first day of school.
Oh, she doesn't like it? Alright. Yes, it will be in January, but I gave you the first week. I'll have EEA and then in January, the first week, it will be approved, but I'll let the EEA know we're just a little bit behind.
Okay,
Alright.
fiscal year 26 budget.
So I'm gonna hand this out because we just finished it today. It should be enough. So as we do each year, we are required, we work on a level service budget. So that's all these services we have in FY 25, we move over to FY 26. There's no new positions, there's no anything. So the deadline was the first week of December to get it over to the town. We're all a little behind, so we had a little wiggle room. So I emailed this over today and, based on, FY '25 and FY '26, it is a 7.68% increase. So that's about $2 million, increase. And just, it could change, we're still, I'll explain a little bit. So this is like, we had to estimate the health insurance and benefits. So we did that with 8%. We haven't heard an official number yet. As you know, we have an obligation that if there is a program that Pathfinder doesn't have and Smithville does, we have an obligation to send those students to Smithville. We are anticipating a 5% increase there. As I complain every year, that's very expensive because we're looking at $20,000 maybe per student plus transportation to go to Smithville when we have an agreement with Pathfinder, but that's the law, it says we have to do it. The private school special education tuitions have gone up $750,000. And those are students, as you know, that may be having trouble or difficulties or have a certain learning disability that we can't meet their needs in district. They'll go to an out of district placement. So that's up for next year. Also, we have some of the other factors are we have a student that needs a full-time nurse with them all through the day. So that was an additional cost. And I don't mean
Coming
it
into kindergarten or?
already here, yeah. And not that that's an additional cost, like it's a burden, but it's just what the student needs. So that's another cost that we have to provide for the student. My understanding is there may be another student with some severe medical needs that's coming into pre-K as well, so we gotta keep an eye on that. So overall, as I said, it's a 7.68% increase to the budget. I have not heard anything. Steve has been keeping me in the loop about budget meetings. We're still working on their numbers on their end. But I did forward you an email, and they were asking for a joint meeting on the 21st. As we do each year, they do a joint meeting with the select board, the finance committee, and the select board. We have a school committee meeting that night. I don't know if you want to attend that meeting in lieu of this. If all of you can be there, or if none of you can be there, you want me to ask a new date, I'm throwing that.
I think I saw who you can be there, but I think finance only needs one.
Finance and budget?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, the town.
Oh, yes, but,
So if we pushed it another date, I don't think it would be till February.
no, in speaking with Steve, he would want something sooner. So thanks for bringing that up. They just kind of planned it on their meeting date to see if it was convenient, but he said there'd be a possibility we would have to do a different date. He would like to do it sooner than later, but
So I could do the 14th or.
I'm available for two.
Oh, no, January. Ooh, the 21st is a regularly scheduled school committee. So,
Yeah, I think I could do either.
If you guys can do the 20.
Yeah. So I think if they have to do it the 21st, 4 out of 5 of us could go.
yeah,
If they could move it to the 14th. Well, I guess either way, we should have a school committee 14th.
if we don't have it the 21st.
Yeah, so
Yes.
that would be the 7th and the 14th. I don't know if that's too many or.
Yeah, let me. Could we do it the 28th, isn't the one more week and?
Yeah. And then we have one the following, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
If you,
So,
just can, I can look through it and,
see what it says. So I guess if they can move it to the 14th, let's do the 14th. If we can't, then we just.
okay. And as we know, we're always changing that. I would put together a more in-depth presentation, but that is where we're at now. Yeah. Oh, I almost forgot one of the most important things. With the FY26 budget, I received an email from a group of parents from athletics that wanted to meet with school administration regarding the condition of the fields. And we met, Ruby was there, Heidi was out of town. We met, and they actually gave us some good suggestions about how to, they were wanting to help fundraise any way they could to help with the fields. We are all aware that the fields need an upgrade, need some TLC. So Steve Williams from the town was there, Linda Ledoux, DPW, Max Fox, who's the maintenance department. We all had a conversation. The individuals that sent me the email provided some suggestions about advertising, fundraising. We're looking into all of that stuff to see if that could help. We did learn some things about the water, and there's just not enough water in town to water the fields. Some people had suggested a well, putting a well in. So we're looking at all of this information. At the same time, we submitted a CPC grant of $185,000 to redo the stadium field. We're waiting to hear back on that. So this is really good conversation, and they came up with solutions. But I want to be very clear, and I'm saying it here, that the district, myself, is all for having a working committee. So I'm going to form a working committee. But the names that I got, I guess there's some hard feelings out there in the community because not everybody was asked. Only certain people were asked to be on the committee. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send out a letter to all athletic parents. Anybody that's interested in whatever sport will submit letters of interest. And if there's more than one, we'll do a lottery. So everybody has the right to be on the committee. So I'm working on that now, but I want to share that as part of the FY26 budget because if the booster clubs can help, that would be great because we're looking at funding issues. But I also think too that no matter what we do, we have to have a long-range plan in maintaining the field. So if we get the CPC grant, that's great, but we also have to come up with $25,000 to $30,000 to maintain the fields. If we don't have the money to maintain the field, then they're just going to get where they've been. As you all remember, you were sitting with me here. We had to cut our budget $1.3 million last year. That was 14 positions within the district. We had to reduce some programming. I don't know what it's going to be like this year. All I know is that I'm willing to work with parents on this working group to see if we can come up with some kind of funding opportunities to help with athletics. So I share that as part of the FY26 budget because it might be revenue to the district for FY26. So that's it. Where we are, got anything you find out?
No, I think we kind of covered it. I mean, yeah. I think there's more to discuss, but.
Yeah, there's a lot to discuss to the point that there was conversation about pesticides and chemicals, and it's in our plan, but we're not using them, and we need to use them to maintain the thing. So we just got to get some clarity on what we can do and not do, and move forward. But I think the only fair thing to do is open it up to everybody so we have an opportunity to be on. Thank you, Beth.
Okay, moving on to our mold testing.
So just an update on mold testing. I know that you had asked about the baseline, or should we do a baseline? I talked to Eric. The baseline is going to be the air outside the classroom.
In the building, but outside the classroom.
Yes. So it's not like we have to wait till a certain time to have a baseline. He said whatever you use, the baseline is the air outside where you're testing. You know, so. And that's
Is that
what
gonna
we're
cost
do.
us money?
Yeah, it's $2,000 per classroom.
And is there a benefit
Of what?
getting the baseline?
So the baseline is part of the testing, no matter what.
Okay, so if
Sorry,
we
no.
agree to testing, we do the baseline.
Yeah, so you know how you said we'll do it in the spring?
Yeah.
Well, whether we do it in the fall or the spring or the winter, there's gonna be a baseline within the test itself. And that's what they use to compare.
So I think they wanted us to test now
Correct,
and then test then.
correct. And you said we'll get some information about a baseline. So that's why I went to Eric and said,
Well, we wanted to know if there was a benefit to testing now and in the spring.
The answer is no.
yeah. I was gonna
Okay,
say
that's what I thought, but.
Yeah.
So then,
Go ahead, Ruby, you have-
go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think that from their perspective, at least what they're saying is that there is a difference between now and spring.
Right, but now they think it wouldn't be a problem. Like, because it's so dry and things, well, right. Whereas in the spring it will be.
Right, so I think it depends on what you consider base. So within the test itself, they're gonna test outside the classroom, inside the classroom. But if they're the same, that doesn't change the fact that it might be different in the fall versus the spring. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right, but I'm more interested if it's a problem, right?
Right, but
Like, so if I do the test right now, let's say right now, inside and outside are the same, right? That's what the expectation is, but in the spring, inside the classroom is significantly worse than outside. Like, that's where I think there's a problem.
so let's say you do the test now, inside and outside is the same, and you do the test in the spring, inside and outside is the same. But test now versus test in spring are significantly different.
But is there, like, there's a rate.
Yeah.
Right,
There's no,
But there's a certain point where it's either acceptable or it's not.
Correct.
right, okay.
You're gonna fall in a range,
Mm-hmm.
and that range is acceptable.
And outside the classroom is outdoor air.
I thought you said it was outside the classroom, but in the building.
Oh, no, outside.
I have a question.
So like whether if the air you're breathing outdoors is different from what you're breathing in the classroom.
Oh,
And
okay.
outdoor air is that whole, I mean, it's a bigger problem.
Okay. I thought it was outside the classroom versus inside the classroom within the building.
Are folks okay if I acknowledge the audience? Okay, go ahead.
So you're saying how there's like, you're figuring out if you want to test like sooner or rather than later when it might be like more. But like there's that baseline, and depending on if that baseline, it goes over that baseline, then it's a problem. Does that baseline change in like a later time when there will be more, or will it be the same throughout? Because if you're saying it's going to be the same throughout, then you would want to push it out more where it is most probable.
So that's what we were kind of debating, so ultimately, we're gonna get an acceptable or an unacceptable grade, right? So, like a passing grade in school is what, 60? So a passing grade in school is 60, so if I do the test right now, and I get a 60 in each, it doesn't matter, but if I do it in the spring, and I get a 40, like whether I do it now or whether I do it then, it doesn't matter what the difference is.
Okay.
It only matters what that moment.
All right, I'm gonna have Eric come to the next meeting, he's out today, just to explain, but my take was, no matter when you do it, it's gonna be acceptable, so, or not acceptable. So let's say, just argument's sake, if this is just me, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, is if you do the testing, now, and you get a 22, and it's in the range, then you're good. If you do it in the fall, and you get a 30, you're still in the average range, what are you gonna do differently? Or what's the district gonna do differently, I guess, is my question. And I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking,
So let's let's have it for the agenda next time and make it an action thing.
We can just make decisions.
Okay,
Didn't you already go through this?
no, we voted to get more information. Oh, did we then vote?
I thought you did, but let me check.
Oh, it's fine.
No,
We
I
voted on it. I just got confused.
I just knew we wanted more information. Okay, building study.
And we need more information.
So building study, so as you know, Heidi and Ruby and I and some select board members, met way back when we weren't getting the Davis Brook, project, building project. And then we didn't meet again, and Steve and I were talking, and he had mentioned, I guess some people on the select board were saying about, wanting to close a building or regionalizing. So he talked to me about, would we want to do a study? Some kind of feasibility study of consolidating buildings. So he gave me the names of 3 companies. And I said, I'd bring it forward.
Who's paying for it?
I don't know.
Well, not us. Let's establish it.
Said the town after.
I think he mentioned that it could go through a capital, improvement.
So I would like to just share this with you, right? I went to a session at the conference about regionalizing, like, but if we were to regionalize, my impression is it would be like Smith Vote, and we would just get to tell the town how much you have to pay us. Like, there would be none of this like budget nonsense. It would just be like, if you need.
Yeah.
No.
It's not gonna work out.
Well, I don't necessarily think it's good for the town, but I think that it would take it out of, I mean, there would have to be a separate school committee of the regionalization and all this and that.
It is not gonna work out.
So is feasibility study, it's both to look at regionalization as well as building consolidation?
So I had said, I don't know enough about regionalizing, that we would have to get someone. That takes years, that takes, that you have to have another town to work with you, you have to do like. I will say it right now, I don't think that's the way Belchertown should go. That's just my opinion, it's not my decision. I think we haven't even had a discussion from the building boards, the 3 boards. There seems to be a lot of, thoughts and suggestions about what we should do with the schools, but yet nobody's really talked to us. I do have a meeting coming up, with a member, so I think that will be great for us to touch base. But, I sit and I listen, and, I don't know, people are throwing out these things, like we can just throw this person here and these kids here and this and there, and yet we've never had a conversation. And this isn't a quick fix that we're gonna be able to do. We have to make sure we have a long-term plan. I'm not opposed to the possibility of consolidating schools. I think we need to see what happens with the budget. If our budget keeps being cut millions of dollars after millions of dollars, you're right, we're gonna have lots of classrooms empty, because we're not gonna have teachers. And then we can put Cold Springs in, I don't know, Swift River, and we can move everybody around. I don't, nobody's talked to me about, what that would look like. I do think that if we're even considering it, we should have a third party do it. It's ultimately your decision.
The feasibilities, people, things that you got, who, like, is this what they do? Like, they look at condensing, consolidating the schools, like, I understand education.
I haven't done any research, to be honest with you. I wanted to know where you wanted me to go as the committee, to to do this. I'm assuming they probably do it educational, but I'm not sure.
So I think to your point, I mean, we went on those building tours with the select board. I forget who was there. I was there. I wasn't there. But, so I was there, some members of the select board were there. We haven't had any kind of a follow-up from any of that. So I think it's preliminary to then, I think we need to have a meeting to kind of discuss what everybody's takeaway was from that, because I think there are differing opinions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we move forward with any kind of a building study. And I would like to make, because I feel like we've been down these kinds of paths before, where it's like the town says they'll pay for it, but it comes out of whatever money they're giving to us for any capital improvements, which is not really them paying for it. So I think we need to get some clarity around that as well.
And I just have to say, because I feel like I'm obligated to do this, we received no capital funding this year. We received none the year before. We received none the year before. Then we got some, then we received none and none. So is this study going to take away from us getting capital improvement money that we need to allot for something?
I mean, they'll 100% tell you, I don't give it to you anyway, so.
Right. So I think that's a conversation. I think with the new policy in place for the select board and the finance about the free cash and the 80% and the 60%, you know, there'll be more money. But I think it's a larger conversation to do it. You know, people are mentioning JVIsh, you know, consolidating JVIsh. But you know, I also think Cold Springs. I think that may be easier to consolidate Cold Springs with another school than it would be to Jayden. I don't know. I gotta figure things out, but I think we need a third opinion. But I just want a direction from the committee. You know where to go.
I think scheduling a meeting where we can like meet as, was it a tri-board thing?
I don't think anyone from finance can do that.
Yes, Lori Shea was there.
I think they were, somebody was there also.
Nicole was there. Lisa was there. Steve was there.
There's Jen.
Jen was there, Ed was there. Oh, Mike was there from finance too, from some of the and I mean, I think it was great. I think it was a great opportunity. I saw a lot of spaces in town buildings that I didn't know existed. You know, and I think it's fair to say, if you're saying we have a lot of empty rooms in the school, that's great, but there are also a lot of rooms at the town that have records from 1920 in there. You know, why aren't we getting rid of those things and consolidating some town buildings? So I think what we do, we have to look as a town and see what's best for the town.
So the debrief meeting.
A debrief.
Yeah, I think that would be our first step. Right. Personnel and policy.
No.
Okay. Property and transportation, further finance and budget that tonight.
We did, we reviewed
Oh, that's the week.
fiscal year 25 budget, fiscal year 26.
Okay. Healthy and safer schools.
Yes.
We met on November 19th.
Yes, so we talked about that meeting.
We had, I don't know, we had a meeting.
Okay.
I came late, so I don't know if you had anything. But, we had an update from the drug-free communities, there's an update Take Back Day, discussion with the National Drug Take Back Day. They were working, they had a really successful trunk retreat event. Today, what's today? Tomorrow, at 6:45 is a meeting on the nicotine-free generation in town, if anybody's familiar with that, so it's, it's,
We talked about that, and when I talked to somebody else about that, and they're like, so prohibition? I was like, well, no, but, I mean,
I'm not gonna comment at all, actually, about it, other than saying that the proposal is that anybody born after a certain year
When they would be able to smoke.
cannot purchase tobacco, nicotine
Correct.
containing products in Belchertown. So you can't go to Amherst or something like that, but like that Belchertown would not be selling them to anybody born after a certain date. And so
So
there's,
eventually,
there's a meeting tomorrow night, that is virtual, that you can attend.
I don't know,
Before-
Sean,
That would be a good meeting for you guys to attend. Be good.
They've been here for a long time.
There's a quiz, by the way. You ready? I got my questions ready.
And then that was also our first joint meeting with the Comprehensive Health and Phys Ed Committee. And they are trying to bring updated health standards into the schools. And they reported that there was a survey with 9th through 12th graders to see what their priorities were in terms of like health education. And I thought it was really interesting that overwhelmingly it sounded like first aid and CPR for all those classes was what came up on top. And then mental health and managing stress. And so they're going to be using grant funding to get materials. That's what I think.
Got it.
excellent. How about collaborative?
The meeting is tomorrow.
Exciting. All right, any questions from the media? I don't think there are any.
Okay, what presentation did you hear tonight? All right. Who's the chair of the committee?
That one. Smash them along.
Who's the best superintendent?
We're gonna enter into executive session.
Give on the back.
Discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and litigation, review an A, B, C, or D, or E, as having said business in open session would be detrimental to the school committee bargaining and litigation position. We will not be returning to open session.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so with that, it is 7:17. Do you consent, Nisha?
Yes.
Natalie? Amy?